Welcome to the Victory Multisport podcast. This is Coach Sarge, and I'm with Coach Scott.
Hey there.
Coach Kenny.
Hey, what's up?
And our special guest for part 2, Coach Matty Mo.
Good day, guys.
Yeah, great. Great to have you back. CEO. Trust the plan coaching. So this is an intro to the actual part 2 of Matty Mo's podcast, and we wanted to bring this to you as a very special announcement. We have a huge announcement to make that Victory Multisport and Trust the Plan Coaching have entered into a strategic partnership. And we want to explain a little bit more about that in a few minutes and let everybody know that we see this as an extremely exciting and uplifting and additive relationship between the two companies, and that it's going to benefit every single one of our athletes individually on both sides of the equation. So it's a great thing. So how are you doing with this, Matt?
This is awesome. You know, I've been in the sport for over 20 years, and I think throughout my time, I've seen a lot of different coaching approaches and a lot of different coaching relationships. And I think one of the things that I always come to understand in the end is that, you know, when you have a bunch of experience behind the concept and behind the company, you know, as the old adage says, iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. And it not only goes for the athlete, but the coach. And I think what you guys have built with Victory Multisport in these last 2 years has been amazing. And I think that, you know, I'm at a point now where, you know, I want to be a little bit more strategic with, you know, how I set up my coaching business and understanding what you guys have as resources and what you bring to the table. I think it's a great fit for Trust the Plan Coaching and Victory Multisport. And, you know, in the beginning, when Kenny came to me and asked me about this, you know, I'm very protective of you know, my brand and the way that I do things, and I never want to, you know, create any ripples in the water, I guess you could say. And as we talked through different scenarios and different details of it, I got to understand how you guys go about supporting your athletes, and I got to know, obviously, how, you know, you guys run it behind the scenes, and especially who you have on board, and especially with Scott, Coach Scott, you know, who we'll be working with, you know, on some pretty cool things. Mm-hmm. Understanding that we both align our values and, you know, sort of the mission of what we're trying to do. And I think it was just that time.
Yeah.
It was just that time. And I'm super, super excited, nervous, you know, kind of, you know, it gives me chills a little bit. But, you know, I think as we go about this, we start to learn each day, and we start to become better and better in how we work together. And I just can't wait.
I think it's, you know, it's enough to say that we're making the announcement here in September of 2023. But I'll go over to Kenny, because this has been a long time coming. And you mentioned the fact that we talked about values and goals and objectives and how the internal processes work to help the athletes. And I think that's been, I'll say, we've invested a lot of time on purpose to make sure that those things are aligned and that we're all seeing eye to eye, that we have you know, like a shared mindset on those things. And I think that's really important. But you know, the real beginnings of this were hatched by Ken.
Oh, I mean, Matt, I think I said it in the last podcast. I mean, I think I've always looked up to you, and I've always watched you from a distance doing your thing, and the way you did it with humility, the way you did it with aggression, the way you dropped the hammer, as you said, on so many different aspects of your life. I think when Scott and I started Victory, one of the first calls I made to you was, hey, Matt, how would you go about getting this? And to your credit, it was an immediate phone call back, and we had a conversation. You steered me in the right direction, and that might have been seed drop number 1. And as our athletes, you know, as they come in, a lot of them are just trying to figure out their first goal. But then when that's met, that second, that third goal comes up. We always wanted to make sure our athletes dictate every move for us. And that those moves dictated, like, to bring Sarge on and help organizing a lot of the back end and allowing Scott to do what he's best at and me to do what I'm best at. And I knew, I'm like, I got to get Matt in here. I got to get him. And that's why it was the swim. And I think it solidified why we wanted you and how this collab is going to be so beneficial is every swimmer that left that day was in awe of that story. And man, I could listen to that guy all the time. The amount of the DMs on your podcast alone of like, wow, he's the man. Like it just solidified everything that we were at. So I couldn't be happier in this moment. I mean, I sit back and I look at it and I'm like, this is the right move. It's the right move for Sarge, myself, Scotty, for Matty, and it's going to be the right for these 130 or 140 athletes that now are going to be having the resources of this collab, which is just going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one of the primary objectives of this entire thing was not only have we been friends for such a long time and that we're now able to work together closely, is the athletes are going to benefit. Every single athlete, the new athlete, the existing athlete, the beginner endurance sport athlete to the experienced endurance sport athlete are going to benefit from the knowledge base that's just, exponentially grown. The depth of the pool of resources, whether it's bike fitting, whether it's logistics support on an international race, whether it's elite level run technique coaching, what I've called in, recently, that U.S. Olympic team style strategies and coaching methods. I think that's all fantastic. That's going to help every single person.
Yeah. And the coaches, I think it's gonna ripple down to all of our coaches too. When they start seeing the different workouts and all the planning of what's going to happen as we're about to let this cat out of the bag, but as they start seeing all of the things that are happening, the coaches, the athletes, all of us, we're all going to benefit. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, I would agree. The excitement will be contagious. I mean, it already is between the four of us, right? When you think about just our organization and how it's developed and grown.
Yeah.
I mean, you go all the way back to the beginning and you have visions of what might become, and then to have that actually happen, I mean, that is a great thing.
It is. And again, I think Victory started that mile 20 in Panama City when we were talking about there's something more for us. And we were happy with 8 to 10 athletes. And we were sitting there on a Saturday watching our first one do a trail run half marathon. And he was like passed out in his back of his truck, Jeremy Potts, who's about to have a baby. And, as this thing has evolved, now we have guys going to Worlds and a crew coming back for World 70.3. And Matty's got them punching tickets. We got them punching tickets.
That's right.
And how can we get more to punch those tickets and to believe in themselves? And this collab had to happen for that stuff to
we're going to
fire.
have people punching tickets to Boston. We're going to have people punching tickets all over the world. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know what? I think one of the things too that we look at whenever we talk about coming together in collaboration with this is that, I always remember back in the day, the pressure that I put on myself to perform at a high level. I think what I've learned throughout my days is that you almost need that voice to slow you down and almost tell you to use the sport for good instead of allowing the sport to use you. I think there's a difference that, what I've done, what I've tried to instill in my athletes is that you can get more out of the process than just a PR or a fast split or a qualification somewhere. You can get a metaphor of life that I think Victory and Trust the Plan coaching can really share with a lot of people. And that's my passion. And that's sort of the way that I coach. The ability to remember what your time was in 3 years that you raced in 70.3 Worlds, Scott, not a lot of people are going to remember that, but they will remember the grind that you had. And we talked about in the last podcast. And I think that's something that, the ability to talk into people's minds more than, my athlete base and combine all this, it's just a recipe for success.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. And we're so glad to bring it to all of our athletes and all of our listeners on the podcast and everybody really that is a friend of either company is going to find out about it very, very soon because we're not going to stop telling everybody.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome thing. So in addition, and on top of this huge announcement, we have even bigger news. And that is that through this collaboration and this strategic partnership that we have with Trust the Plan Coaching and Victory Multisport, we are creating a Victory / TTPC elite crew. And that elite crew is the highest potential athletes out there that are, tapped out at what they're currently doing, whether they're self-coached or they're coached by somebody else. They know there's more left for them. There's something out there that they are still seeking and they want to go after. We have been able to really design a program for them and for you out there that can bring the heat, to use one of your terms from last podcast, Matt, bring the heat of establishing the highest degree of coaching prowess and knowledge to help you in your athletic endeavors, to add in the rest of the crew that we have on the coaching staff, Coach Scott being one of the head coaches of this group as well. But we've got the VO2 max testing and performance testing. We've got bike fitting if you're in the triathlete world. We've got collaborations and partnerships with nutritionists and physical therapy and all the other mechanisms that keep athletes on the field and working. So we wanted to make that announcement as well. It is something that is going to roll out over the next several weeks, and more information will be on the website, and we'll be talking about it more on future podcasts to let people know exactly how that works. But I guess I wanted to hear from Coach Scott on his thoughts on this new concept and this new level.
Yeah, just generally excited. Matt mentioned about elite athletes and how they lean into the sport and the resources that are needed to help elevate that performance. I really do think the services that we have available and that we offer to athletes, it really is going to benefit that elite performer if they're looking specifically for gains in an area in particular, or just in general, if they're looking, maybe they don't know what they need, right? Like maybe they've plateaued to some level, or they've topped out in performance and they just want to come to us and just talk through stuff. And there might be some discovery through that leads you to understand, hey, look, as an athlete, maybe I've been ignoring this certain part of my training or my performance. And if I address that just a little bit, wow, I might be able to achieve just a little bit more, or maybe just even enjoy the training a little bit more, which then in turn will make the performance during race time that much better, right? And not even necessarily better in terms of, here's the quantifiable time outcome, but maybe I get from point A to point B stronger, or, a little faster, feeling a little more confident in areas where I wasn't before. I just think to be able to have all of those services under one umbrella and be able to offer that to either elite athletes or aspiring elite athletes, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, with the real high potential people, right? There's potential in everybody, and that, the goals can't always be different, but the potential, untapped potential, is what we're trying to draw out in those athletes. And I think that's what Matt's, been talking about on the podcast, where, even his own personal efforts to seek out experts, to go into higher performance groups and to do your very best to keep up. And there's places where you were winning and there's places where you were dragging, right? And that's always happened. But every time you walked away from one of those workouts or one of those summers, you were a better athlete, you were a better runner, you were a better triathlete, whatever the focus was for those efforts. So.
Absolutely. And I think that when we look at this whole concept, and I'm just so excited to be able to be part of this and work with Coach Scott, I think we're trying to put together a puzzle. And I think this puzzle can be approached from a number of different ways. But I think that for the athlete and the coach, there's a certain level of satisfaction that is had whenever you can work through not only the successes, but the challenges that come along the journey of training and building into a race. Some of the best times that I've had as a coach have been when things didn't go right with my training and the way that I executed a plan for an athlete, because those are the learning kind of steps, right? Those are the times that we take a step back and say, that didn't work out, but what could have gone a little bit better? Did I not taper them, for enough time? Did I taper them for too long? Whatever that is, did I not do enough of mixture of speed work and integrate that into runs off the bike? So I think that, for that athlete that wants to take it to that next level, there is that level of satisfaction of taking away the pressure of thinking about what to do every day, especially at that level, right? And giving it to us, who we've had the years in the sport, we've had the successes, we've also had a lot of challenges and failures, but it's how you come back from that and work with your team. So this is just awesome, and I just can't wait. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. We're going to build into it, and we're going to keep at it. But, for you, the listener out there, elite is all relative. So don't think that you're not elite just because you're not qualifying for this certain amount of race or, these kind of, platforms. I'll just contact us and talk to us whenever that's time.
I think we've talked many times up until this point for this announcement and for building out the framework and the structure. Elite is a mindset. Yeah. Elite is a mindset and a commitment level to wanting to be more and better, and really investing in yourself as an athlete, investing in your training, to bring out that full potential. And that can apply to any single person, and it doesn't really matter. So we're definitely in the realm of high potential output, folks. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be work, but it's going to be extremely gratifying and satisfying to achieve the goals that get mapped out at those initial meetings with those elite athletes, to try to put together those macro plans, backfill that with all of the interim training and racing that'll go on to get to whatever that is, whatever that ultimate goal is, that brass ring, if you will. And we'll get there. And it'll be different for every single athlete that's in that crew, because everybody's goals are going to be different. Everybody's going to be at a different progression within training blocks, life, all these different variables. And we're understanding of all that. So it's been awesome.
So I honestly think if I was a brand new athlete and I was looking at Victory and I just was trying to figure out what, I don't know, I think I want to get into a triathlon. And I know, okay, if I do this, I could get started, and we're going to have coaches there to help them get started. Absolutely. That's right. I think Trust the Plan and Victory has been built on those athletes that gave up the keys to the car to say, I can't do this anymore. I need to know what I am or what I can be, and we'll help you there. But I think if I'm a new athlete knowing, wow, I could actually get into, if I like this sport and I can progress and I trust my coach and I'm putting in the work for it, I could excel. So in year one, maybe it's just to finish that 70.3. But year two, I'm realizing what I have. And I know there's another step of the major leagues where if I work hard enough and if I have my calls with the coaches, that I can go there. Yep. And there's a place for me. And I think, when we look at what Victory is and why we've always done this, I think Scott and Sarge and I, Matty, has always said, we wanted this place to be a one-stop shop. Like, we want you to know that, hey, you need a bike fit? Call Sarge. You want strength and conditioning? Call Hayden. You want a VO2? Call Nelly. You need a dietitian? Call Kenny in California, who's about to do an Ironman. Mm-hmm. You want elite? Call Matty Mo. Call Scotty. Like, it's all there now. And having that stack, it, to me, like, again, we're always want that athlete that's trying to figure it out, but we also want them to be figuring it out, saying, what if I wanted to do more? Maybe I can't do that Olympic anymore because I'm too good for it. I'm going to go 70.3. Mm-hmm. And what if you hit worlds? Yeah, we're going to have you. We're going to have the people there. That's why I'm juiced. I'm ready to go through a wall, or, I'm fired up with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Matty doesn't want to sit next to me anymore.
It is a great point, though. It is athlete centric, right?
Correct.
So if you're in the sport and you've been dedicated to it and you've seen some progress and you really enjoy it and you're noticing that you're just getting deeper and deeper into it, right? You're on the training side, on the knowledge side, and you're wondering, well, am I elite, quote unquote, elite material? Well, I mean, this is the opportunity to find out,
Let's
right?
do it, yeah.
Reach out. Like
Yeah.
those are the ingredients that make up a person that operates in that particular space.
Right. I mean, people out there, there's athletes out there on the teams, all teams, I would venture to say, and, they're investing in themselves in certain ways. And many times that comes in the form of gear. So they're out there buying the next piece of gear, the next piece of kit, the next better bike. I've had many conversations with people in their bikes, and I'm like, yeah, you can't outride this bike at this point in time. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a level where you could, but you need to be able to train into it. So let's take all of that stuff that you've accumulated over the years, that you've used in your races and your training, and let's help you really squeeze the most out of every single piece of that kit, every single hour of training in the week, every single mile of running that you're having to do, or biking or swimming that you're doing, by putting you into a program that is going to get the maximum output benefit from all of that work and all of that gear and all of that kit that you've invested in over time. And you're going to get the results, and you're going to get the awards and achievements, and be ticking off boxes of goals and having to re-goal yourself. And that's a good problem to have for an athlete.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when we also look at it, a big focus of mine is the attention to detail, like the ability to take everything that you guys have built and provide to your athletes, from, the neuromuscular testing and everything. But I think that in terms of understanding the process, understanding what a recovery day is, that high performing athlete, whether they're driven by social media, whether driven by, the next, competitor and what they're doing out there, there is a time where you need to stay within yourself and understand that recovery day pace doesn't need to be at, the top Strava performance of the day, but understanding that kind of discipline to do that, understanding how, the efficiency that your body needs to go forward fast is sometimes more important than muscling through something. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's something that we really take a lot of pride in, offering, that we're going to offer through this program. And, that's a big proponent of, when you're at that level or you're trying to get to that next step, you sometimes overlook because you don't have that voice in your life. You don't have that voice in your training. For me, for a lot of other people that have gone through this, that's what makes the difference. That's mm-hmm. What makes the good, differentiates the good from the really great.
That's awesome. And I think that's exactly what we've been trying to convey here for the past, 15 or 20 minutes with the team and with all of our listeners. So Matt, thanks again for joining us for this add-on piece to your second podcast.
Thank you.
About to come in right behind this. Listeners, thank you for sticking with us on these announcements. Hopefully you're as excited as we are for these. Please visit the website, victory-multisport.com, for more details. And please, next, enjoy part 2 of the Matty Mo podcast. Welcome to the Victory Multisport podcast. This is Coach Sarge, and I'm with Coach Scott.
Hey there.
Coach Kenny.
Morning, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And we've brought back Matty Mo for a part 2 of the Victory Multisport podcast. Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm good. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for coming back over. And
I needed some time to decompress from that podcast 1, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end, we weren't sure how to feel, right? It was just so emotional, and it was charged, and talking about your Kona run. And I guess I don't want to say how it didn't work out the first time you went to Louisville, but then you came back with a vengeance and changed a lot of things, and made it.
Yeah, it was, it's definitely nice to reflect back on and understand that, what I've been through and how I've been able to piece everything together, and those memories, they sit pretty comfortably in my in my mind. And it's
we could tell. I mean, we're getting a little bit of chills from it. Just listening to you talk, I could tell you did seriously have goosebumps multiple times.
Yeah.
While you were telling those stories, and that's great, because that's really what a big chunk of what we do and what you talk about as the process, the daily improvements, the daily work, the grinds that you put yourself through. We call it chopping wood, right? Just going out and doing things over and over and over again. Not to be perfect, but to be so good you can't really make a mistake. It might be different than what you expect when you get on the race course, and you may have to adjust, but you're not going to not make it.
Exactly.
You're going to make sure you make it.
Exactly.
So a great story of resilience on the bike tech helping you out with a Huffy pedal and some duct tape. Some zip ties might have worked better, but that would have been cool.
Yeah,
right?
that would have been a good thought. But yeah.
Yeah, well, Coach Sarge will have zip ties next time.
I appreciate it.
So awesome. But we appreciate all of the insights you gave us last month, and just enjoy you being around us and you telling more of that story of Matty Mo, and us sharing a little bit of what we've seen in it and how we can relate to everything you're talking about, even from their basketball days, from your upbringing in neighborhoods that we kind of feel familiar, not necessarily the same ones, but came with some similar things from Ohio and Pennsylvania, and just how it all works together and how we've all been able to come together, and the sports found us, the sports pulled us together. We're just like really attracted, like an atom, just all working on the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but obviously I'm super grateful for you guys having me here again. And I'm just really impressed by the dynamic that you've established with Victory Multisport, and the ability to bring, this group of people together and to really set them on a track of success, not only in the sport, but as we all know, the metaphor that we gain from the sport that they can take into life. And it's just a really, really awesome kind of setup that you have. And, just happy to be part of it, and, just to be here with you guys today. So I really, really appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Matt.
So Matt, I have a question. As I listened to episode 1, there was a point you had talked about 2 different times that would appear to be losses in your life. And one of them would have been the semifinal game against Erie Prep. And then the second would have been that missing Kona by 3 or 4 and how it lit your wick. Do you find in your career that you've gained more in those moments of loss, or that you gain more in moments of wins?
You know what? That's really interesting. I think one of the things that I take away from those moments or those challenges, and we could call them failures, but I don't necessarily look at the losses as a huge learning curve. I look at them as a reset kind of state. What I do look at in terms of understanding how to adjust and come back from losses are my training and preparation for things. I look at it kind of different, just because the race is something that goes by for me so fast in terms of how I set it up, not necessarily the time, but how my mind works. You strive to make that one day perfect, right? And to be honest, we're never going to get that one day that's perfect. So you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be okay with that. What I love, and what I've tried to establish within my own coaching business and within my own training throughout the years, is gain that perspective on using my training sessions, meaning the everyday grind of trying to get a little bit better than yesterday and be ready to be a little bit better tomorrow than I was today. I think those are the type of experiences that I yearn for. So as much as, the loss to Erie Prep and, us not getting to play Kobe in the state finals, or, the pedal incident that took me out of a trip to Kona, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I can't really go back to that. But if I have a a bad bike workout, or if I don't feel right off the bike in a training session, I know that I can come back the next day and make that a little bit better, or find out how I can make that a little bit better, because I missed, on a hot day in Pittsburgh, I missed that feed zone, or I missed that gel, or, I didn't sleep properly the night before, or something wasn't right in my circle of life. That little piece of the pie was missing, whether it be I had a tiff with my wife before I left the house, or, I just mentally didn't feel engaged. Training to me is almost more engaging than the actual race.
I think you said it to me maybe about a month and a half back, about swims, how you build a swim. And you used the term, are you competing inside that swim? Are you competing in the workout? And that really hung on me, as I was coaching and watching all of our athletes do such unbelievable things. And I started thinking, am I competing? Every day I wake up, am I competing? Or am I walking through the motions? Am I going right up to the line and maybe not going over it, stopping short? So I started challenging myself and hearing that in the workout, there are so many things that can happen. But I loved when you used that term. I want to make sure they're competing inside that swim. I want to make sure they're competing on that interval that they didn't want to. Because if there's a dog inside them, it'll come out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love that terminology used.
Yeah. And you know what? That space and that state that you mentioned, that competing state, or that dark place where you go, that we all talk about, like, people need to get there, or you need to understand how to deal with that. That's a very unique and personalized kind of feeling, because it's something that you can't force somebody to understand. Listen, not everybody is going to go to that state. Not everybody's going to get the opportunity to push themselves beyond the limit, where that tunnel vision becomes really small and you can't see anything but that glimmer of light at the end. Not everybody is going to want to go there, right? So as coaches, I think one of the things that we do is we try to walk them through those times and allow them to understand that it's all relative, that they can use in their own world walking up to that edge. My edge, your edge, Sarge's edge, Scott's edge, it's all different, right? And I think that's the enjoyment of watching people grow as athletes, and definitely watching the inner sanctum of elite athletes race and train, whether it be endurance sport, whether it be the mainstream sports, whether it be, anything that we really look up to. So yeah, everybody wants to get to that edge, but walking to that edge that's a scary kind of path, because you don't know what is going to happen to your mind, your body, your psyche. And that's the unknown we talk about.
It's a privilege when you get there, man.
Oh man.
Matt, in the last episode, you made the comment that you trained phenomenal, right? With a lot of other athletes. But when it came to race day, it seemed like maybe those other athletes had something, maybe another gear or another level that you didn't have, but then you grew into that. How did you work through that process of evolving into understanding what it took to become an elite racer?
Yeah, I think the word evolution, is a very powerful word. I think it's something that, we can't force the process. You can't force the effort. But I think the thing that I learned is that through experience, through the really tough times, through the taking yourself out of your comfort zone, allows you to gain that perspective, to gain that insight on how you go to that darkness, and I still have trouble with it to this day, in terms of I can train really, really well, and I can keep up with some of the best. But that pressure, when you line up on race day, that's a pressure that a lot of people, even myself, are still trying to figure out.
Right.
Because I think, to me, we can't necessarily realize our full potential. We're never going to do that in life, right? It's just not something that we can dictate. we can try our hardest to be the best we can, but the full potential of what we're trying to do will always be lost, because I think in my mind, we have that little bit more that we can push. But to take that on that one day, and there's so many tangibles that come with race day, expectations, the actual physical execution, your hydration, nutrition, the weather that you can't control, your competitors, the amount of people that are lining up at the start line. You know, when I raced,
even conditions. I mean, we had Coach Nelly, hit a bad patch of asphalt, and he came off his bike at his last race, right at the USATs. He still finished, but it was certainly not in the plan to go face down on the pavement, right, on your bike. So those kinds of things come up, right?
Yeah.
We've all experienced adverse weather, lightning storms at Lake Placid, and rain on the bike, and you're going to move and you're still going to get through it. You're not going as fast as you would be on dry pavement. It's not safe. It's you want to stay upright.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of things that go into, okay, now the gun's going to go off, and it's all variable. I think that's why in the last episode I thought it was great that we got into that resilient factor and being able to adjust and being able to understand metrics enough in that managing your hydration and your nutrition throughout a race on a different condition than what you trained in, and those types of things. I think it's all great.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the really tough part of what we do as coaches, and especially in this sport, is that it's such a distinct feel that people desire from it, right? What they want out of sport, whether it be endurance running, multisport, ultra running, whatever that is, ultra swimming, they want what they think they want. It's our job, and it's really, really hard, is to pull that extra % out of them. Uh-huh. However, as we talked about in the last podcast, it all comes back to the process. And as coaches, and I hate to see this, when coaches try to speed up the process, it will always, always win. The process will always win. And it's the athlete that embraces it and uses it every day to get a little bit better. And I'll continue to say that because I wanted it so bad. I wanted to go to Hawaii so bad. I wanted to feel the winds. I wanted to feel the heat underneath my feet. I wanted to make the left into the energy lab. I wanted to come out on the famous steps from Kailua Bay. I wanted to ride out to Hawaii and feel the winds. But, it just wasn't my time. But I think that understanding that it's the process that allows you to feel that little gains, those little gains that turn the small successes into the really big ones.
So last episode, you had said that when you finished that first Ironman, you felt different, changed. What did that mean to you? Like, because you were a competitor, you competed your way all the way to college basketball, so you danced on some big stages. But then a couple years later, you get into this multi-sport world and you rebaptized yourself as a new person. Like, what does that, and the reason I bring it up is we've had several of our athletes, I felt baptized coming out of the water. I woke up today as an Ironman and I'm a different person. It just seems like they feel better about themselves. Can you talk about that first triathlon finish when you came out and what that felt like for you?
Yeah, that was a pretty unique opportunity for me to explore a different kind of soul searching, dig into my soul that I never really experienced. I think that one of the things that we always try to do and always try to keep in mind, and if we don't, is the reinvention of who we are as people. I grew up playing basketball. That was the love. And I found this other activity that I could do to explore, the limits of what my body could do. And that was triathlon. And I reinvented myself from being a basketball player and, that world into this world. And I remember, the last stretch in Lake Placid, you go out and back on River Road.
Oh yeah.
And if somebody would have had $10 they offered me to stop running and to join their picnic or grill party on the side, I probably would have taken it right then and there. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, that push and that environment allowed me to become somebody that I had control over, that I had the ability to say, you know what, I'm not going to give up today. I'm not going to, allow the voices to creep into my mind, the darkness to seep into my soul. And I've never had that before. It's just a very unique place. So I came out of that Ironman, and my focus was completely engaged with the sport. I wanted nothing to do with anything else. If I did do something else, it was all coming back to how it contributed and benefited my Ironman racing.
Right. I think that that moment for you, all of us have been there. All of our athletes have or will be there soon. For those that are competing in any of these events, whether it's the first time they're running a marathon or it's the first time they're doing an Olympic triathlon, there's moments where the body, I call it the body's rejecting the activity. The body's telling you your leg hurts. Well, if you ignore that long enough, that leg stops hurting and your other leg will start hurting because the body's trying to figure out a way to communicate with your brain who keeps saying, go, go, go. You got to get this thing done. You've committed to it. You got people waiting on you. You want it. It's, you want the medal. You want to finish it. So that's one factor that I have personally experienced. I ignore that pain and another pain comes up somewhere else and I ignore that one. And finally they all go away. And there might be this like dull pain of I'm running as, my pace and I'm holding it, and that's okay. That's perfectly acceptable. Right. But listening to those little ones that my foot's hurt, my foot's not hurt.
Yeah.
My foot's not hurt. It's just been a long day and it'll be a little bit longer, but I got to get going. So that's one. But two, I've always found that the sport offers something. The crowd at on River Road, there's 3 houses, right? And you're out there, and other than the quad guys, the guys that are patrolling it with the quads to make sure everybody's safe, you're like, and they're just drinking beer and they're cheering for everybody and they're trying to offer you a beer. And I don't need that, but I need them to cheer just a little tiny bit, and then I'm going to run past that tent.
Yeah.
And, or whether it's the guys at the top of one of the hills where they're having you pop wheelies for a Twizzler or something like that, right?
Baby bear, mama bear.
One of those. I mean, it's just those types of things. And then I've been on there where it's another athlete. Somebody I knew that's not, didn't even know they were necessarily running, but I recognized them and they're running the other way, coming back. And they're like, hey, keep going, Sarge. Good to see you out here.
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I going to stop now? I can't do that. Right.
Yeah.
They're out here. I'm out here. We're doing this thing. So it's great. And I appreciate that so much. So
yeah. It's a very unique kind of approach to sport. And it doesn't mean that, my approach is it's the right way to do it. But for me to get where I wanted to go, I had to go into this world of complete streamlined focus and, understanding that my why is going to change every day, that the ability to get up and train every day is going to really test the limits. And there'll probably be more bad days than there are good days, but I made it. I came to terms with that. And I mean, going into that first Kona was, it was like all hands on deck, and that was a really special time because we had an area of, this area out here in Pittsburgh, we had an elite group of athletes that brought it every day. So if one person was hurting, it's okay. We'll bring you along. And it just switched. It went around the circle, and we really embraced that community that we had.
That's great. That's great. So what year was that Kona, that first Kona?
2010.
2010.
Yeah. So 2010 was, it was a pretty kind of emotional year. Like I said, we had a big group qualify for Kona. And it was the year after my father had passed away, the year before. And right before I qualified and we scheduled everything, my mom gave me an envelope that had a chunk of money that was laid out for my dad that said that he had wanted me to have this to enjoy my first trip to Kona, to race Kona. And so that paid for our lodging in the town. And so it was a really special time. We went out with Chad Holderbaum and his wife, and had this beautiful condo on the bay. And I remember like my first ride out on the Queen K. And I mean, thinking back on that, I don't think about it a lot anymore. I mean, it's just one of those memories, but really thinking about how the winds felt, how the road felt under my tires. You know, I was enamored with what I had seen on the NBC coverage that I didn't even understand what I was about to get myself into, you know, in October. And, you know, whether it be riding past the airport at Waikoloa, or riding up to V and riding back and feeling the crosswinds off the bay and seeing the whitecaps, and, you know, or starting that run along Ali'i Drive, the first 5 out, 5 back, and then making the right up along Palani and making the left on the Queen K. I mean, I didn't care what my time would be. I didn't care if I had to walk. I didn't care. I mean, I'll tell you that I can still feel the waves adjusting me in the bay as we treaded water. And there was a Hawaiian tribal group doing the traditional dance on the shore. Mm-hmm. And the mayor of Kona blessing the entire town, the athletes, the spectators, and the legendary voice of Mike Riley of Ironman, you know, sort of getting everybody to understand what we were about to do. And we were treading water in the bay, and it was complete silence. And I looked around, and all these guys were taking off their goggles because their eyes were filling up with tears. Because it was just like the most magical moment that I had ever experienced up until that point in my life. And it was I felt like I belonged there at that moment, at that time in my life. There was no other place to be, that I needed to be, that I wanted to be. And as soon as that cannon went off, it was like game on. And that was when Kona was like everybody. You know, it's not separated. It's not, you know, everybody other than the pros started together. And it was one of the most spectacular days of my life. And, you know, coming down Ali'i to the finish on the run, I mean, coming under the big banyan tree that overhangs out on the drive, and, you know, the crowds and the people and the chalk writing on the roads. I mean, the feel of accomplishment that you have from just getting to that point. I mean, you didn't even need a medal. You got to that 26. If you stopped right where I thought, the Banyan 25.8 mile mark, and you walked off the course, I mean, that's a victory in itself.
That's fulfilling in itself.
Yeah. But you run up the ramp onto the stage that you've watched 300 times throughout the year because you recorded it on a VHS tape, and you gave yourself and your family and the people that you've influenced and the training partners and everybody that has come into your life that has helped you along this way, you've given them that victory. Man, it was unbelievable. I can still feel the carpet underneath like my feet, and I can still feel like the chute, and you can still like hear Mike Riley, and you can still hear the waves crash up against the shore, and just all the sensory overload that I had that you didn't get from the coverage, or you didn't get from interviews. It was just not life changing, but life adjusting moment for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's no way, even post interview with TV, and it takes a while to bring that all into a way to describe it like you just did. Like, it takes years for you to kind of process, the brain to process the emotions, the feelings, the smells, the tastes, the carpet, all of that into what you just described for everybody. And that, so thank you very much for sharing that, Matt. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. I think also that could be exactly the same thing for someone doing an Olympic for the first time that's never done one, that's scared to death to go out into that water with, 65 or 85 or 95 age groupers in their own age group and battle around a couple of buoys in moraine. But do it there, feel the water in moraine, feel the road when you're riding the road in there, and get that medal, and then move on to another thing in life. And that's maybe probably a bigger race or another race, but it's great. And so thanks for that story.
It's
beautiful.
My pleasure.
And you've been back a couple more times.
Yeah, so I went back in 2014, and then I went back to the national or the World Championship half Ironmans in Vegas. After that, 2014 was I qualified at Mont Blanc. And that was a special time, just to reaffirm that I did belong.
Still having a little impersonator.
He's going back to those basketball shorts.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Bring the old shorts for the podium.
I still have my hat turned sideways, and
God, I want that picture, please, Matty. Please.
I can't.
Even if it's on paper, I'll scan it in and put it in the video.
I actually think I still do have it.
There you go. Take a picture of a picture and send it.
Picture of a picture. It'll be great.
Yeah. And this was a little bit different. This was more business, but it was the same approach.
Yeah.
There was same kind of build up. I knew a little bit more. I was a little bit more experienced, and I went with a super great friend of mine, Jason Jacobs, and his family. And, it was still that prestigious kind of time. Being able to walk along the Leahy, sit at the coffee shop, see these pros.
Was that Jay's first time?
That was, yeah.
So you got to experience the first time with him.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It was super awesome.
He was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was... He was just,
and we say was because he moved away, so we're not real sure what he's doing now. I'm sure he's still a monster.
He's still a monster. He lives out east in PA, and he lived in Bend, Oregon for a little bit, and I used to go out and train with him during the summers. But it was a different experience because, I knew what to expect. I didn't have this, I wasn't glossy-eyed. But the really interesting thing about this trip was that when I crossed the finish line on Alihi this time, I waited for this spotlight to come down and extinguish everybody around me and give me a voice to tell me what to do next. Because I thought, okay, I've been to Kona. I've raced this many Ironmans. I've got to the level that I have. I've embraced it. And I just need direction. Do I continue to do Ironman? Do I go after another Kona, qualification? Do I take another direction in my endurance sport? And there was no voice. I got to the, and I still have the video. I got to the arch, and I just stood there. And not that I was waiting for it, but it was like, it seemed like I was looking for something, or I was searching for that message that after all these years, after all these accomplishments, after all the tireless training, this was the stage that was going to give me that direction that I would take in my next phase of life. And he never said anything. Nothing came. And I walked away from Kona fulfilled because I finished, but I walked away from Kona kind of empty. Mm-hmm. And I think I I forced a lot of the issue going forward with racing, because I was searching for the path that I didn't know what it was. And that was a really scary moment for my wife and I, because it was like I was more tunnel vision to do something that I probably didn't have my full heart into, than doing something that I was completely invested in. And that really created a lot of growth between my wife and I, because I brought a lot of it home. And we don't do this for a living per se, but it's part of who we are, right?
Sure.
And it was a really tough time for me to understand that next road.
Yeah, I think that, and we'll ask the question. I'm going to let you take a pause there. It takes time to process, right? So coming instantaneously across the finish line at Kona and expecting that you'd have the answer in that moment, probably not the best, right? Expectation of you're dehydrated, your electrolytes are kind of wonked.
Yeah.
You're half bonking because you need a real meal.
Oh, yeah.
You need a night's sleep or a week's night's sleeps to kind of get to that place where you can then say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Positives, negatives, could have done better, should have done better, maybe did this, and balance it all out, process it. So give yourself a break.
I know.
Okay, give yourself a break.
It's interesting. It's the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
So you defined, when you went through the description of your first Kona experience and how you had all of these sensations and these feelings, and you were in the right place at the right time, at the right moment, everything was aligned. I mean, that's the highest of highs.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what I believe everybody is searching for, whether it's in this sport or in any part of their lives.
Sure.
They want to feel that, right? That's the definition of living, Then you go back, you do it again, and maybe the expectation is it's going to feel that same way. Maybe it doesn't. And so then you start down the path of, also, what I think we fundamentally do as athletes in this sport, and again, probably in other parts of life, you're searching, right? So you're either in that state where I feel like I've climbed the mountain, I'm standing on top, or I'm looking for the next mountain to climb. Mm-hmm. And so that's interesting, because I think you've pursued some other challenges, right?
Yeah.
So what maybe... And I might be jumping the gun a little here, but what's the latest?
Yeah. So, coming off of all those years of racing and searching for that perfect day and that meaning to life, I guess, I got to the point where, I wanted to pass on my knowledge. I wanted to pass on my experiences, and I started my own coaching business called Trust the Plan Coaching. And it, certain things worked out with my wife and I where we sort of had to make some shifts in our household. And to be honest, I lost my job at the health plan, and she lost her job teaching at Penn Hills. And we sort of left it up to our faith to really guide us, what to do next. And we still talk about it to this day, where we, she said, Matt, I think it's time for you to start your coaching business. And the next week, a friend of hers called her and said, are you interested in an interview at North Allegheny? And it was like we had just hit reset and we were ready for this next phase. And
it's funny, maybe God was talking to you then instead of in that chute.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's what it was.
I think didn't want it then, but wanted it now.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the past 8 years, I've managed a healthy coaching business, and it's been great. And I've been able to pass on my knowledge and what I've been through in my career and in my life. And I got to the point where I've done a lot of things endurance wise. I've run across the country of Haiti 3 times. I've done 100 miles up in Vermont. I've trained and been really fortunate to be around some of the great athletes in the sport, in and around some of the great coaches in the sport. A lot of my opportunities have come through my connections through the years. And, but I got to the point where I needed a new challenge, and physically, and, I sort of set this and I put it out as verbally to see if I could try to qualify for the Olympic marathon trials. And, as a 45-year-old, man, that is a really tough task with all these young kids coming up. So I thought to myself, well, how can I at least experience what it's like to do that? Where do I go for that? And I went back to those days, as you said, Scott, to going down into Claremont. And I said, what place can I go to be around those kind of people? And I found Flagstaff, Arizona. And Flagstaff, Arizona, for those you don't know, is the mecca of the distance running, top elite kind of playground. And I talked with my wife, and with her being a teacher, we have the summers to play. And we had actually gone out to Arizona on a trip, just on vacation, and we stayed in Flagstaff, and we were able to see what it's like at 7,200 feet elevation, train on the grounds that these guys train on, connect with some of the groups out there, to get to know their coaches and some of their athletes. And we decided that this was going to be our plight for the next couple of years. I go back to the journey. This is a tall task. My body is not, it's not set up to go fast for that long. It's not supposed to be. But what I do have is the will. I do have the fortitude and the discipline to come back every day. And that's what I think these guys in Flagstaff really admired, is that I came back every day, even after really hard sessions. These guys don't mess around. They represent our country for a reason in the Olympics. And the respect that I have for the way that they use their talents, the guidance they get from the top level coaches, and the ability to perform at altitude is off the charts. It's unbelievable. It's like watching a tour rider. You really don't know how strong they are going up the Pyrenees. It looks like kind of steep. They're kind of moving, but the amount of power that they're pushing, the speed that they're running at, the dedication to their skill is by far one of the most impressive things I have ever seen. And while they're in it, while they're in that workout, that session, that Hurt Locker, they're in it. They're not thinking about what they're going to buy at the grocery store. They're not thinking about what coffee they're going to get afterward. When you're in that moment, you stay in that moment, because you can never know, as we talked about, you never know when that breakthrough is going to happen. And for these guys, and what I try to experience, is spending just a tad more bit longer, of pain to experience that moment longer of elation. And I think that's something that's really, really important when we're talking about breaking through that barrier. They just want to endure just one more moment, and that's all they're there for. So we're on this journey, and we just have to see what it brings us, and I'm trying. That's all I can do is just try. But my wife and I are loving the experiences that we're having, and the people that we're meeting as we navigate our way out in Flagstaff. And we just came back from a month and a half stint there, and it was great. And it's in our hearts. And regardless of what happens this year, we'll continue to go back and enjoy what that environment brings.
Well, it sounds like that while you're deciding to chase this for yourself and for your family, you're contributing in the other end. probably in ways that are even unknown. Some are known, but some are also unknown. So seeing someone like you being out there, showing up every day, not turning down a workout, showing right back up after the hard workout has to be a leadership lesson for some of the younger guys that, yeah, they've run and they can run and they're certainly fast and that's why they're there. But there's leadership within that you're providing, and the experience and wisdom that's coming from you having been through all of the things that you've described in the last podcast and now this one, bringing that to the table, bringing your mentality of trusting the process, of understanding the process to the table has got to be helpful to the crews.
There's no doubt. And I think that that's something that, you know, with victory, I think that's a big lesson to teach, because everybody's at different stages of their career, right? Everybody wants something out of this that, you know, is different. Whether we all come together and we say, you know, we want to qualify for this race, or we want to, you know, earn our spot to Boston or whatever that is. Everybody has their own path. And I think it's something that, you know, as I've been around these athletes, you know, the theme that comes back to me is reinventing yourself. We talked about it. You can't be afraid to reinvent yourself, you know, because I think that that's something that is very important, you know, in terms of understanding your path and your why. You know, my why has changed throughout the years as I've reinvented myself. I reinvented myself from a basketball player to a triathlete to an endurance runner. You know, along the way, I've done some incredible things and have some incredible experiences. But in the state that I'm in right now, you know, that's something that I have to be okay if this doesn't happen. And that's okay.
Yeah, that pursuit is so, I mean, so I have made this comment to others before, and again, coming back to my own daughters, it is difficult to make the decision to pursue something and you put yourself into it 100% and you're doing everything you think is correct. You sacrifice all of these personal, whatever, fun for extra work, or putting in more effort in different spaces that you think are going to make you better in the hopes of achieving something or winning, right? It comes back to your comment when you did Louisville the first time. You did all of those things to prepare, and you don't know for certain if you're going to get the outcome that you want. That's a tough spot. Like that, and for anyone, whenever anyone is pursuing something, and what I tell everybody is, man, like, look, go for it. Like, go all in on all aspects, and maybe it'll happen. But if you don't decide to do that, I guarantee you I know the outcome.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So what kind of person are you going to be? Be the one that pursues all of those goals or dreams or whatever it is. Take a shot. But if you do it, all in. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Because there are so many things that happen along that journey that in retrospect, you will appreciate and you'll understand that you did have so many moments of, you know, winning moments, of victories, of whatever in there that made it worth it, even though the destination might not look exactly like you think.
Yeah.
Said it perfectly.
I think that it's a great topic, great little segue here to just talk about that a little bit for the listeners and for the athletes. We get so many questions about what race should I sign up for? And I get it. Yeah, we want to pick races that we're going to enjoy, that maybe other athletes are going to be at. Maybe there's coach support at the race. I get the mechanics of why you're asking that question. But I think that to clarify that is not the goal. That, yes, you want to do Lake Placid next year. You have 360 days to train. What are you going to do with those 360 days that's going to make the difference a year from now? Than just signing up and saying, yeah, that's my race, and I'm gonna see what's in peaks, and I'm gonna kind of do what I can, and I'm gonna have some reds and some yellows in there, but that's going to be okay. I think it's more important to, and you've mentioned it before, Scott, about when you really start taking away the days, how many days do you have to train? How many days, and how are you going to make each one of those days matter? And now to your point, Matty, about being intentional within the workout, intentional within the training block so that it gets you there. I think that's a super important thing. Yes, pick a race to put something on the calendar that you want to do. It's going to be part of your goals, whatever it is, to accomplish something, but then back that plan all the way up to tomorrow morning.
Hey,
look,
a message for athletes, right? Like if you have a goal of, competing in Kona or Boston or something like that, and you think maybe it's a little crazy, I'm here to tell you, dude, it's not. Mm-mm. It is absolutely not. Like I can remember as a kid, I was a kid with posters of runners on my wall. Like most kids had posters of football players and baseball players. I had posters of runners because I loved it. Like, and I swore one day I'm going to run Boston. I don't care how it happens. It's the same focus, right? And I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried, and eventually it happened. Same thing with championships in triathlon. It's like, oh, I did that. Maybe I can do that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try. Like if you have those aspirations or those thoughts, and maybe you're even struggling right now to complete a sprint try or an Olympic try, and you think, oh boy, I really want to do a full Ironman. You can. You just got to stack it the right way.
Yeah. You have to stack it the right way. You have to consult, if you're with Victory or you have a coach, consult the coach. They're going to give you advice. They're going to talk about what it's going to take to get there, what are the steps you need to do, and how it'll all work, right? And I guess getting those expectations set correctly or appropriately is a key to that whole planning piece, but it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for anybody to set any of those goals. That's what this sport's all about. There's even more opportunities now than there were in the past. We're splitting it, men and women. You get twice as many athletes in it as you did before for Kona and for 70.3 Worlds. They're splitting those as well on different days, same venue. So there's more opportunity now than there ever was to work into the right race at the right time in your life, at the right time in your training evolution to catch a spot.
Yeah.
And to go.
And I think you can't stress enough about the importance of a well-rounded coach. Somebody that you can establish trust in, because I think that one of the things a coach does obviously is they talk about what race you can sign up for and where does that fit within the scheme of your season. But I think a really good coach takes the time to sit across from an athlete and learn about who they are as a person. You mentioned, it can't be stressed enough, Sarge, that is it the right time in your life?
Yeah.
The drive for Ironman and the MDOT, it's a huge pull. It's a magnetic pull that I've never seen before. And just so you can wear it or, you can brand yourself. I mean, I think that one of the things that we really sometimes lose focus on is completing the investment into our athletes, talking to them about relaxing into the process in terms of where we can fit, this Ironman race into. If you've never done a triathlon before, I mean,
might be a while.
It might be a minute.
You might need a couple of years.
But as a coach, let's be creative in terms of setting up your schedule so you can be fulfilled with maybe starting off with a sprint, getting into an Olympic at the end of the season, maybe packing 3 half Ironmans into your next season. However that may be,
and even understanding the economics, right? To go for full Ironman, it's not cheap, right? There's travel, there's the Ironman fees. You do have to have some proper equipment. You can't just show up on a Steely. Yeah. It's going to be a tough day to come up with a Steel 10-speed from Walmart that's going to, probably not going to work out well.
Yeah.
Right? So there's investments that need to be made. They don't all have to be made in one day. They need to be really appropriately for, life to be spread across whatever amount of time it takes your body to adapt, your mind to adapt, your physiology to change to where your body's processing the carbs correctly so that you're not getting sick every time you go out and eat a goo gel or whatever, right? Yeah. And that just takes time.
It just takes time.
I mean, Matt, your story in of itself, your first triathlon was in a pool and you held the rope. You held the lane rope the whole way. You go from that to Kona. It doesn't happen overnight. Mm-mm. But at some point along the way, you realized, oh, I want that. I want the peak. Yeah. And then you went all in. Yeah. And look, there's something off with everybody that's in this sport, right? Like we're all a little like
I am crazy.
We're all different, but yet we still share that common thread of there's something there in our mental makeup that we're all just slightly off a little bit.
We're seekers, right? We're seeking adventure. We're seeking
community.
Yeah. We're seeking
rare air.
The limitations of
pushing the boundaries of us. Absolutely. or the weather or something we didn't think that a normal person, call it normal, average Joe would say, it's raining, I'm not going outside.
Yeah.
Right? I'm worried about getting wet going to the car.
Exactly.
Like that person. No, we're not. We're out there riding, running. Kenny and I did 5 miles last Sunday, pouring down rain. It was the best freaking run we've had in years because it was cool. We weren't overheated. We were soaking wet. We didn't care.
Yeah.
We didn't care.
Yeah. Sarge, could we clarify that? That was 8 because I went 3 miles early.
Well, you showed up early.
Well, here's why.
I did 5.
Because there's a hashtag Kenny doesn't run.
Yeah, you did 8.
Yeah, I was wrong. Maddie saw me run.
Kenny did 8 that day. Sarge did 5 that day. But it was the best.
These things, Maddie.
It was the best day, right? Kenny took his shirt off.
I loved it.
The whole thing was.
I had a headband on, do-rag. Maddie do-rag. Do-rag. Welding hat. Welding hat. The people's champ. I got stung by a bee. Got hit by a weed whacker yesterday.
So it was all against you.
It's all against me.
You're like a magnet for events.
We're going to get Kurt Angle down here next and Lumberjack from Project One to kind of like give you a couple kidney shots next time, right?
Listen, he said he was going to blast me in the liver, and I don't know. Ever since then, I haven't picked up the phone to call him anymore.
No, exactly.
I do like your comment about limits right there, though, because I will say I love to like seek the limit, and then I want to go one step past it. Like every time, it's like, okay, where's my limit? Oh, it's right here. All right, I'm gonna go one more step.
So, but I think we can talk about or discuss what limits people talk about or people desire. Like you can go a limit on comfort, which in our world means speed or distance, right? You can talk about the limits of mentally being healthy and taking a chance and having the confidence to sign up for something. So I think that when your listeners are going through this podcast, I think it's one of those things to really, really pause for and think about that your limits don't necessarily need to be about how much faster you need to run or the distance. It could be an easy, like, let's get out to North Park instead of doing it on my neighborhood trail. Mm-hmm. North Park might be a little bit more visible. It might be a little bit more, a lot more people out there eyeing you, So I think the limitations are all relative in terms of how, people hear them and set them. And for us, for myself, it was all about speed. It is all about speed. It's all about distance. How long can I hold a certain pace for? What is my comfort level? How can I adapt my body to handle taking in hydration, nutrition at that kind of pace? Like these are all things that consume my mind every day. So, but that's my limitation. Those are how I explore my limits. Mm-hmm. So being a little bit more constructive with their thinking is part of the sport and the part of the way that you take control of it instead of allowing the sport to take control of you. Because it doesn't matter how many Ironman shirts you have in the house or how many medals you have up on the stand. In the end, it's how can you give back from your experiences to influence, like you guys are doing, your group of athletes.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I mean, you even think of like Kate or Jared, that came as runners, or Kate that never thought she could do more. Her A reach was an Olympic distance. Now she's done 270.3s going to Finland, and she came as, I just need to get ready for an Olympic, and I'm frightened of the water. Now this one is going to Finland, Penn State, Ohio, and she's probably going to swim a 4.4. She didn't even like to swim.
That's great.
Chesapeake Bay, and I think it's us, and it's so refreshing to hear you. It's our job to mine the athlete, to understand what's in your mind. What are you thinking? What do you want to do? How can we do this together? How can we tailor it to fit your schedule? And Jared's another one. I mean, that he sends me man meat moving on a hashtag because he rode 40 miles on his bike. Jared's a big guy, muscular, fit. But that guy was a runner. He couldn't do 2 miles, 3 miles. Now he's 10K, 13.1. He just did a triathlon, got zapped by all kind of jellyfish. But they told him, don't go in the water, or if you can, you could run instead. He chose hard. And he's, coach, look at all the red marks on my neck. That's jelly, And this guy will do a 70.3. And that's the kind of stuff, the limiters of what you once thought was a limiter. It's that evolving why. And, I think you've alluded to it. Like, my why back in 2012 is way different than it is now, as is yours. Your why once was Kona. Now it was, my why was, I want to hear that voice to tell me what to do. And you figured it out. You found, and so let's hover in there. I mean, Matty, what would you say, like the evolving why for you? I mean, do you recalibrate that every year? Do you is that something that changes daily? Like, where are you at with that?
You know what, that changes. I think every day I wake up, because I go from, or I go from hoping the body can walk to the bathroom sink to hoping that I can complete this workout, to hoping that I can get to the start line of my next race and do this very ambitious goal. But I think one of the things that always stays with me now is my ability to influence. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing for me now. It might not be because of my performances, but it's definitely because of the voice that I have within the sport. I don't take it for granted, and I don't wear it on my sleeve, but I've been blessed with a healthy body that has carried me over miles and miles and miles of very unique activity. And just as, military people do, and, different groups of people that experience these kind of like spiritual moments, I think my job right now is to influence others. And I think that, I work on it every day. I seek out different ways to do it. And as we've talked about before in our prior conversations, that kind of approach, that's free. It goes down to the very basics of things, like holding the door for somebody, saying thank you, saying yes sir, no ma'am. The ability to get back to the basics of things and really appreciate what journey other people are on is super awesome for me to see. I really don't care if you never make it to Kona, if you never feel the water on your sand.
I said it many times. I don't care what pace. Like, if I'm getting a text that says, and I've got them, my life is different. I'm more confident. I'm more present. You saved my marriage. You saved my life. Like, those are the things that God calls us all home, and he's not going to say what was in your bank account, or, oh, you finished that race, you made it to Kona, Matt. Like, give me a fist bump. He's going to say, man, you brought so many people, and you stopped them in a habit in their life that was going the downward trajectory, and now they're living, man. They're living their dash. And that's the why. I think what I really went from was, hey, I got to race, and I got to be a good dad. Like, I got to show Lorelai what I can do.
That's how we started. That's exactly how we started. We wanted to show our kids
Yep. And then that went from,
You don't have to just buy a house and have kids and be done with life. You got to keep moving, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's a hard part in there because there's a couple of them that were probably a little selfish. Like, oh, I'm just going to go do that one because I can do it now. But I didn't have a reason. Then I started raising money for races like lupus and Parkinson and Semper Fi Fund. And saying, if I'm going to beat my body up, I'm going to do it. So that lit me a little bit. But now this victory, and I think victory, we named it. I mean, Scotty came out of the water and he said, victory could mean so many different things for people. I think it could be winning a race. It could be changing a lifestyle. It could be doing this. That's their victory. And I say it all the time. Like, I get mad when people are like, man, you're a marathon runner, Matt, but I struggle with the 5K. That's your marathon, man. That's your Kona right now. Be proud of that.
Yep.
And yeah, man, I think you hit it out of the park, man, to be able to influence. That's all of our whys. As a coach, it's a shameful if that's not your number one why.
Yeah.
To influence.
Coach Scott?
No, I agree with all of that. It's all relative to what people want to achieve, right? It's personal. It's all really personal. It because it's personal, so when you think of other spaces in life, be it work and stuff like that, you're told, hey, look, maybe this isn't as personal and that kind of stuff. But when we engage in this, we're doing it willingly. And because of that, it really comes with that personal attachment. And so it means something, right? And you're right, Kenny. It doesn't matter if it's a 5K for one person, a marathon or an ultra or whatever. It is, I didn't think I was capable of X. And now I've learned something about myself that I might be able to achieve X plus 1.
X times 10, right?
That's right.
Who knows?
And where does it go from there? Like, oh my gosh, what could I do? Like, it just opened your eyes a little wider.
100%. I think that what brought us to the table here today and what we do on a daily basis and why, we've been having so many conversations with you, Matt, is, for me, and these guys will agree, mine's to create that environment that allows them to excel in what they want to accomplish, right? Build the team right, have the mechanisms right, make sure we've got Twizzlers and Mike and Ikes at each race, whatever that is, right? Have the tent up, build the victory multisport environment so that it's attractive to the current athletes, to new athletes, to all levels, so that they can come in and start to, tap into all of what we know, all of what the other athletes bring, the energy, the camaraderie, the science when we need the science, and the accountability when they need the accountability, right? You say you want this. What are we doing to get to that? And that's what we're all about. And I think it's great that, you can see it, and you've mentioned it multiple times that you've seen it happen.
Yeah. Scott, Sarge, a perfect example, Chris Graham. Okay, so Chris is also known as Hog. I mean, greatest guy in the world, and he wanted this so bad. And he came to our team camp last year and just had a panic moment in the pool. Wetsuit was a little bit too tight. So went back, and his swims were great, Matty. They were 130s, 135, sometimes in the 120s. He was putting the work in. He was going after it. He finished a sprint, building the momentum, went into an Olympic right before Ohio. Ends up having a panic moment, gets pulled out of the water. As a coach, I called him that day when I found out, because we had Steven there. And I sat in the car embarrassed, and I was crying because I let everybody down. All those voices that said, you couldn't do this, you're dumb to do this, why are you quitting softball, why are you doing this? And he went to work. That was his milestone or mile marker moment where he could have said, I'm done, I'm not doing this. He came back and worked harder. And there was another one of our athletes that had the same fate in another race, and he wrote that guy's name on his swim cap, and he said, I'm swimming with him that day. He's coming with me. He came out of that water, and he says, I was like a new man. He still has his band on his wrist. He's got his Ironman hat, and that guy is like, when you see it, like the hardships of what we go through, his why was, man, I don't ever want to feel that again. and I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to figure this out. And I was in Lake Placid desperately, like, when you see him, let me see, let me know. I want to see him with that cap on, because it said for cap, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And it just goes into that, when you want something so bad. His Kona that day was coming out of the water
in Ohio.
That was his victory. It wasn't the finish. It was getting out of the water. Everything else was icing.
Yeah, and I will say, it is really fun because the team supports one another. And so I was aware of all of that as well. And Hog didn't talk much about it. We all knew. And when I saw him on the run out on the course, I was like, yeah.
Hell
like,
yeah. Hell yeah.
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 You get that instant, that instant
Get
juice.
That.
Yeah.
Get it.
Matty slid his chair away from
I don't care. I don't care. When I saw him come out of the water, it was awesome.
And he did great.
He did great.
It was
because the rest was gravy to him. Like the rest was gravy. He had all the rest of it. You know, he just had to get through that.
Well, it's the shared victory though. It is that
100%.
You know, it just gives you a little boost, makes you feel good.
Yeah.
We're all there for one another before we went in the water, and to see everybody else out.
Everybody came out.
It was great.
We got them all out of the water.
Yeah,
in
it was
Ohio.
great.
It's
And
awesome.
I think one of the things that I always appreciate about Ironman racing is, you know, people know when the pros are going to finish. You kind of know when the middle pack's going to finish between that 12 and 13, 14. But if you're able to go back down to the finish line at midnight, that's a special, special time. And that's a very unique kind of environment to understand the human drive. You know, the ability to push and to keep your mentality positive and to get to that finish line. You know, I always say that, you know, the finish line means something different to everyone, right? You know, that finish line, that line in the road, that's a very unique feeling and accomplishment. You know, that's something where you don't ever cross that finish line alone. You always carry the people that have helped you along the way with you across that line. And to see that kind of time and that kind of moment for everyone, whether it's, you know, along a Leahy Drive in Lake Placid, New York, in Panama City, overseas. I mean, that's a really, really humanity kind of rush to see that. And if you ever want to sort of determine if you want to do Ironman, go to the midnight finish.
That's right.
Yeah.
That'll hit you
100%.
pretty hard.
That'll light your wick, man.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
Well, Matt, thank you again for coming for another
Hold on, we have a
session.
couple questions for him.
You want to do the questions?
I want to do the question.
All right, let's go.
I'll let you do the
I'm going to
question.
thank Matt for coming.
Thank him, and then we'll do the question.
And we have two questions, I think,
Yes.
right? So go
maybe
ahead,
three. There might be a third.
Go ahead, Ken. You asked the first one? All right, so there's a legend. We mentioned it in a podcast a couple of podcasts ago about Matty Mo at Lake Placid. And Lake Placid's becoming a bigger race for victory. We got about 7 or 8 athletes that have already signed up for next year. There'll probably be a few more jumping in soon. That I don't know if you were racing that year or you were just spectating that year, but you rode the course and you rode all the way to the top of Whiteface Mountain to the visitor center, which, you know, look it up if you don't trust us on our numbers. But and then you rode it in the big ring, right? And you rode it fairly aggressively up all the way up. And
He only had 3 gears to work on.
yeah, he only had 1 gear to work
And
on.
no
single
drinks.
speed, right?
And
You know,
no
I
drinks.
appreciate that.
There was no drinks.
And we emptied out his
legend.
water bottles. No, but it's just one of those legend stories. So we wanted you to confirm, deny, or clarify, if you would. That.
Yeah, I humbly can confirm that happened.
Okay.
Back in the day, I was a big chain rider, so I didn't believe in a small ring, and I can go back to my training partners about that. You know, during all of our training rides, I'd be that guy. Now, I didn't do it to like show off, but I did it to gain that strength, and I just never came out of the big ring. So when I came down that long stretch to Whiteface.
Yeah, from Upper J over to Wilmington. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I
you're
was
looking
like,
up at that mountain.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I got this. I got that. And I remember I did it with a gentleman. His name was Doug Rittner, and we did that, and we met my wife at the top, who drove up to the top, and we rode through the clouds, and we had to pay the entrance fee and do all that stuff. But that was pretty epic.
Yeah. So for the listeners that may not be familiar with Lake Placid, this is the mountain where all of the downhill skiing in the 1980 Olympics occurred. All the ski slopes are the huge downhills, right? On the other side, right? When you go to the other side. So it's amazing. So you probably just didn't go to the bottom and ride it. You're riding the whole course.
Oh, yeah.
Which one loop of Lake Placid is 4,100 feet of climb. That's one loop. You do two during the race, so 8,200 feet for the entire race. But as a training ride or a warm-up, I guess, for you, you did this, and you added this 8 miles. So 8 miles from Wilmington to the visitor centers and 8 mile up.
Yep. Then came back down and hit Baby Bear, Mama Bear.
Yeah. So you came around and finished the whole loop.
Yeah.
Okay. So 4,100 feet in 56 miles.
Yeah.
3,453 feet in 8 miles that you added just because it's like an inch on the map, right? In the big ring.
In the big ring.
In the big ring.
Yeah. But
his why that day was, why am I doing this?
Basically, I got to
his why that day was, I'm messing with these people that can't even drive this fast up this hill, right?
20 years from now, I'm gonna mess with all the victory people that I went up their big ring. Just so they're gonna have to try it now.
Right. The new legend is Kenny doesn't ride in the big ring, right?
I'm sure there'll be hashtags Kenny Little Ring.
Kenny's a little ring.
Kenny can run.
Yeah, Kenny can run. It's everywhere.
Yeah. But I mean, that's part of what our training group was back in the day. We used to seek out these kind of like experiences. I remember there was a ride down in Deep Creek called the Diabolical Double.
Yep.
And it's 120 miles. Oh yeah.
It's brutal.
120 miles.
Kenny knows.
20,000 feet of climbing.
Oh, it's brutal. Miller Hill or Killer Miller.
Yeah. I mean, these climbs, it varied from road to the dirt climb.
Oh yeah.
Through the forest.
We were there. We've done it. And
we used to do it on TT bikes and not come out of the big ring.
Okay. Well, I didn't. I came out of the big ring. But we did it one year, and we were swimming at Moraine, and we're telling people, hey, we're going down to do Deep Creek, and we're doing the Fondo, and and they're like, what are you riding? I'm like, I'm riding my TT bike, right? And they're like, you add an extra ring to that? Or I'm like, no. I'm dancing with the one that brought me.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, yeah, tough deal. I came out of the big ring. I did not do the whole thing in the big ring.
Yeah,
but
that was ridiculous. I mean, it's still a huge accomplishment.
Ridiculous. We had weather. We had flat tires. We had
heat.
Kenny came out of the Porta-John with the toilet paper attached to his shoe.
In my shoe.
Oh, boy, classic.
Yeah, that was kind of fake, I think.
You did that for levity during the storm.
Yeah, I was trying to make everybody laugh. So I tucked it into my shoe like a real long. And I said to the lady, I'm like, where are we getting back on this course? And she's like, sorry, you have toilet paper on your shoe. And I'm like, oh, gee, I can't believe Brem Brem lost his mind. I was just trying to make everyone laugh.
Oh, yeah, Jason. Yeah.
Well, thanks for the clarity. We knew it was a true story, but we wanted you to confirm that. But for those of you that will be coming and joining us in Lake Placid next year, spectating or otherwise, you want to take the drive up to the top of Whiteface Mountain and see exactly what we're talking about.
Did we or did we not play above the rim? Did we dunk?
Me?
You.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was a dunker. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was one of the things that solidified my street cred back in the day, was that I worked hard to get to the point where I could dunk not only off of like a regular dunk off of one leg, but I could dunk with my left hand. I could dunk with both hands. I couldn't quite get like a vertical dunk because I was scared to grab onto the rim like right off the jump. But I worked hard for that.
That's from all those box jumps you did.
That's for all those box jumps with the aerobic steppers.
Yeah, with his white New Balance.
And you never missed and hit your shins on those at all.
No, of course not.
Oh,
no,
man.
I was flat. Right. Yeah.
No,
Matty, I'm not kidding you. I got to tell you a funny one. We rode like 80 miles. It was on like a random like Friday. It's like 5:00. I'm like, hey, I'll order some pizza, get some beers. He's feeling a little froggy, and we lowered his hoop down to like 8 feet.
This is Sarge he's pointing to.
Yeah, Sarge, like to 8 feet. He took off like he was going to go Michael Jordan, like the Jordan logo on my shoes with the legs open. I think he like blew a hamstring. He got the ball pinned in the backboard.
I was a complete disaster after the 80-mile ride trying to even jump 2 inches off the ground.
And I was like, hey, man,
ugly.
throw it down. I want to see it. I'll get footage of it. And it just didn't go.
I didn't go anywhere. I don't even think I got to the net.
No, you did.
Do we have that picture? Can we flash
can we get that viral? Can we get that going on?
We'll put it in if we have it. I don't
Hunter
know.
might have
I think that was prior to digital cameras.
we could take a picture of a picture.
Yeah. Picture of a picture.
If we have it. I don't have it.
And the last one, Steelers or 49ers? Who we got?
Guys, it was great for me to be on your podcast, and I really appreciate it. So come on, that's not even a question.
We have to have a game one bet, but I can't beat him in any of it. He'll beat me in the swim, he'll beat me on the bike, and he'll beat me on the run because we play in game one, right?
Yeah, September 10th.
We might have him
to run maybe
39 days.
Maybe I'll have to run a half marathon in a 49er jersey if they win.
How about a Sunday workout?
I was going to say, coach the coaches, right? Whoever loses has to do the other guy's workout.
Okay, I can do it. I'm in.
You already tried to do those swims. They always come back like, well, I did your swim. Well, I did part of that swim.
No, because I think he put stuff in mine that were like weird. I had to swim with a construction helmet on. They're all weird.
Everybody else is just wearing an oversized T-shirt. Yours wear full Carhartt bib overalls while you do it.
Yeah. Milk jugs from my butt cheeks, like everything.
Well, I sent him to Scott, and Scott says, "No, we're gonna spice this up a little bit before we send it to Kenny."
Oh yeah. I get it all. I get all kind of stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thanks for the levity here at the end of the podcast. We got in some deep conversations on the second one for sure, coming off the ending of the first one. But really appreciate your insights, your experience, your willingness to share with everybody here. I know we all enjoyed the time again with you. Thanks so much, brother. We appreciate you and everything you're doing out there in the sport, have done for the sport, and will continue to do. And even for our athletes, last month you came and did a track workout with them and just, gave them some tips and motivated while you're there.
Yeah.
Leading from the front. I think that's a pretty important concept. So thanks again.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys and continued success.
You have been listening to the Victory Multisport podcast. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple, or Google, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to everybody very soon.